So hi everybody. Hi everyone. I'm Marna Kumigai, Vice Chair Education in the Department of Medicine. We have a special grand rounds today, which is turning over to our chair, Gillian Hawker, who will be summarizing some of the achievements as well as the directions in the department. Gillian, over to you.
Thank you. Just have to launch. Hang on. Can you see my screen? Yes, thumbs up. I see Michael. Good. So this was not a planned, we weren't normally going to have me present to you guys today. It was supposed to be a culture and inclusion medical grand round, but boy, everybody is really challenged these days. And in fact, what is our way forward was asked to me by a young faculty member who is approaching CFAR, his continuing faculty appointment review. And I thought, well, that's a great question. And I know it's a question that many of us have been thinking, asking, pursuing. So I thought it would be really good to really get you up to speed on what the Department of Medicine has been doing, along with our incredible leadership across the hospitals, our hospitals, which I don't think everybody's really aware of them. We thought it might be a good opportunity to get everybody on, or try to get everybody on the same page and talk about things that are really important to us right now. I am going to start with, oops, if I can go forward. 1 second. A land acknowledgement. And before I give the land acknowledgement, this is a mural that's been painted for the University of Calgary by local Indigenous peoples. And I just thought it was the most beautiful, beautiful painting. So I want to give credit to Calgary, but I think it's beautiful. I do wish to recognize the many Indigenous nations who've had longstanding relationships with the land upon which we provide patient care, teach, and conduct scholarly work as academic physicians within the University of Toronto's Department of Medicine. This is the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Today, this land is home to many diverse nations, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and we are very grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and gather on these territories. And in my role as chair, I want to commit to the fact that we will continue our work to address the underlying inequities and blatant discrimination that have occurred in the distribution of resources between Canada's First Peoples and settlers. I wanted to give some disclosures. I'm a little biased, but even 3 years into a pandemic, I am incredibly passionate about this department. I think this is an incredible department. I know you probably say I'm always frank, but I'm going to be even more frank today. I do not claim to have the answers to the problems that we are facing. And the accomplishments, the challenges, the work that I'm going to speak about are really the efforts of a humongous group of talented departmental members and leaders all over the hospitals and on campus. And I thank them for their efforts. I wanted to start with a picture. And this picture is kind of how I think many of us are feeling these days. I certainly have felt a level of fatigue that has been different fatigue than I have felt before. But I know you're feeling it too. And I thought this picture was important to acknowledge before I launch into what I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to ask for more from our faculty and residents when I know you're feeling like you've got nothing left to give. But I hope I explain why and how we're going to help do that. So what is our way forward? As I said, this was a question posed to me by one of our young faculty. And it really is in three parts. I want to reflect on our current state by talking to you about our 2022 faculty survey. I want to get you up to speed on what we've been doing as a department in collaboration with the hospitals and our amazing leadership teams led by the PICs across the hospitals. And then really, where do we go next? I want to start with the faculty survey, which we received results from in January of this year. And I want to thank you up front for your participation. We had an all-time high response rate, despite how exhausted everybody is, close to 60%, 540 of our 910 full-time faculty. And I've indicated here that 44% of the respondents now self-identify as underrepresented in medicine, based on indicating at least one of being underrepresented based on gender or sexual orientation, race, religion, ethnicity, or other aspects, including age, language, immigration status, and family socioeconomic status. I don't know whether this is an improvement or not. What I do know is that we have a greater number of people that are self-identifying as underrepresented in medicine, which I hope is a sign that people are feeling more comfortable that they can self-identify. We asked you about the impact of COVID on your academic medicine careers, and this is what you said. As not unexpected, a chunk of you, about 40%, said that it either had a very negative or negative effect on your academic careers. About 41% were right in the middle, and a smaller group felt that it had a positive effect. Women were more likely than men to say it had had a negative effect, and our young faculty were more likely to say it had a negative effect than mid or later career faculty. You reported, you talked a lot about what your reflections were on COVID, and I'm going to give you actual quotes from our faculty on the survey. There were some positive things. People talked about having had time for reflection. It provided a moment of pause to do some greater introspection about ways I could be more effective in my work. It's made me realize the importance of personal time with my family, and there was a lot of that. A lot of people realizing how important that prioritization of family and friends is and should be in our lives. Lots of people talked about the new opportunities that COVID provided, new opportunities for scholarship, including COVID-related research, virtual care education, and things that really wouldn't have happened if COVID hadn't happened. They also commented on the fact that while the pandemic made a lot of people shift their work, that as teachers, it taught us multiple ways to teach, even with the restrictions. But while I am saying that people were positive, there were also some themes that were obviously clearly negative, and I want to share those with you too. Lots of comments on how difficult it was, particularly for our younger faculty, managing children who were no longer at school or daycare, but also faculty who had responsibility for elder, parents, people in long-term care, etc. This quote is, "I cannot regain the momentum of my academic endeavors as a result of the pandemic's impact on my personal obligations to family, both elder parents and young children. There's no end in sight." Everybody talked about the clinical workload. Managing clinically day by day is about all I can focus on right now. Clinical work is increasing. There's a need to pay the bills, and overall, I feel I will do less research and focus on maintaining a status quo for my family. I heard lots about EPIC from those of you at UHN who've had it thrust upon you in the middle of the pandemic. Lots and lots and lots of comments. I guess as time has gone on, the sense is that for the inpatient crowd, it's maybe been a good thing. For the ambulatory crowd, maybe not so much. But I think a lot of frustration and a sense that it was insensitive of an organization to do this in the middle of EPIC, but of course, this is how people feel. There were lots of comments about our role as scholars. The pandemic was an extremely trying period. Now the workload is very high post-pandemic. We never really had a rest. There's no mechanism to protect time for academic work. The educational demands are also increasing relentlessly. Trying to find time and energy to commit to my research in the face of this is impossible. My research program has suffered considerably due to the prioritization of pandemic research and the singular focus on all things pandemic related. I aspired to a leadership role and completed coursework to this end, but I feel like these aspirations have been subordinated to the extremely high clinical workload. And probably one that I found most sad is that academic activities have become mostly an afterthought. There were many comments about the relationship between teachers and learners and about the role of teaching through the COVID pandemic. It was hard to provide the same level of teaching as pre-COVID. I feel deeply for trainees during COVID that their training was impacted, but equally it was a difficult time for all, and so expectations have to be adjusted. I worked very hard on developing a new session. Learners wouldn't turn on their cameras. It's very hard to get them to participate, and I'm usually pretty engaging. In general, teaching over video has led many learners to being checked out, which is discouraging for those of us that put a lot of effort into the teaching. And this one's a bit harsh, but it was not alone. I've never felt so vulnerable and bullied working with residents as I do right now. I dread filling out resident evaluations because residents now internalize any constructive feedback as an existential threat and project this back onto me in the rotation. At its core, the relationship between residents and faculty seems to be broken, and I don't know how it can be fixed. I will remind you that we've heard an awful lot from our residents as well, appropriately so. We know that our residents are similarly feeling in many ways that the relationship is broken. But on the flip side, we asked about mentorship and we heard a lot of good things about our departmental mentorship program. 76% reported that they had a mentor versus only 47% when we last assessed that in 2017. But we put all of our efforts on early career, pretty much. And you can see that while we're doing a really good job in early career, the likelihood of having a mentor went down, the further along in your career, to about 50% in our later career faculty. We also asked about satisfaction with mentorship. And you can see that while the majority were somewhat or very satisfied, and this had improved significantly since 2017, it wasn't that everybody was satisfied. And when we looked at what was associated with satisfaction with mentorship, interestingly, the individuals who said that their mentor had helped them with career planning, networking, self-reflection, and navigating university culture were the ones that, that were most satisfied with their mentorship. As we had in 2019, we reassessed professional fulfillment, work exhaustion, and disengagement using the Stanford Professional Fulfillment Scale. In pale blue, you see the results from 2019. In 2022, the results in darker blue. Higher scores for professional fulfillment are better. Lower scores for work exhaustion and disengagement are better. And you can see in all respects, our faculty are feeling less fulfilled in 2022 than they were pre-COVID in 19, which I don't think is a surprise to anybody. 55% of our faculty met criteria using the professional fulfillment scale for burnout. It was 32% in 2019. And in fact, we found absolutely no differences across hospitals or specialties, which actually surprised me because I really expected to see some differences across specialties, but we didn't. Everybody has experienced worsening of their fulfillment. When we looked by age and sex, interestingly, amongst the youngest faculty, it was our male colleagues that were suffering the most, but that quickly shifted such that women were more likely to experience burnout. And as has been shown before by Rena Patani using our 2019 data, we see a disproportionate effect in women of underrepresented in medicine groups compared to other groups. The voice of the resident came out not long after. And in fact, we see pretty much the same thing among our residents. This is Department of Medicine resident results. These are the proportion that said that they experienced physical exhaustion, always, daily, often, sometimes, etc. And what you see is in 2019, 12% of our residents were physically exhausted, always or daily, and that increased over the time period when the survey was done to 21%. So not much different, residents and faculty. We also know that our residents, particularly our internal medicine residents, experienced a change in their exams from the PGY 4-year to the PGY 3-year. And they also experienced a change in the date of the Royal College exam in the PGY 3-year, which caused a tremendous stress, which is exhibited here in response to a question where they were asked to rate the impact of changes to certificate exams on their educational experience. Why is burnout a problem? I think we all know, because it impacts our well-being and our mental health. We do have faculty off on mental health leave. We have never had so many faculty off on mental health leave, and learners as well. Although the literature are mixed, burnout is probably associated with lower quality of care. It's definitely associated with retirement, early retirement, lack of retention, and productivity. The good news is that satisfaction with mentorship seems to ameliorate, or at least lessen, the impact of these other factors. People who are satisfied with their mentorship, still high, 52% met criteria for burnout versus almost 90% of our faculty who did not say that they were satisfied with their mentorship. So just to summarize the faculty survey results, we had an excellent response rate, and I didn't show you the data, but a very representative sample, and I really want to thank you for that. About 41% perceived COVID had negatively impacted their academic career. Burnout is 1.7 times higher than it was pre-COVID in 19. And access to and satisfaction with mentorship has increased substantially. And people particularly value the mentors who are helping with career planning, navigation of culture, networking, and self-reflection. And while I can't draw causal relationships, being the good clinical epidemiologist that I hope to be, positive mentorship appears to protect against burnout and underscores the importance of continuing to develop our mentorship program in the department. So I'm going to shift to the second part, is what the heck has the Department of Medicine been doing about all of this that is affecting all of you? We have been working very hard to target the drivers of burnout. And I want to highlight both Karen Burns, who used our 2019 faculty survey results to look at the relationship between organizational behaviors, unprofessional behavior, and burnout, and Simran Singh, our lead for wellness, who's really played an important role in oncology and at the OMA in terms of promoting wellness. We know that probably the biggest driver of burnout amongst physicians is healthcare organizational and system issues, workload, inefficiencies, clerical burdens, lack of control, organizational support, and feeling appreciated on the job. We know that there are physician level factors as well, including unprofessional behaviors, which have not gone away, have worsened to some extent during the stress of COVID. Lack of mentorship, which I've already spoken about, and really comfort level, being able to relate to one's peers. The reality is that academic leaders, the department, has relatively few levers. We have and will continue to work on appreciation and support of our faculty. We will continue to focus on culture, inclusion, mentorship. But I think our equivalent work is as advocates. This department has a very strong voice. This department is listened to. And we have lifted our voices and used them as per our strategic priority to get political. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. First off, we all know and we've all recognized that while we're all going through this pandemic and we're all facing the crises in the healthcare system, we're not all in the same situation. We're in different boats, experiencing all of this differently. And we've made many, many changes across the department and the hospitals to address this imbalance in order to be inclusive and achieve inclusive excellence. We've appointed a lead for valuing the clinician teacher, Tina Trinkus. We've modified our clinician scientist salary support process. We've modified how we approach CFAR. Many members of the department have developed pathways to enhance diversity of candidates that come into our training programs. We've undergone a lot of leadership education, and we've changed the way we recruit. We've been pretty strong advocates for building capacity for clinical care. Our PICs and their whole departments, and I want to tip my hat particularly to Moira Caprell and the General Internal Medicine Division, have done a remarkable job creating resident independent units to demarcate where teaching happens and where teaching does not have to happen. The hospitalists, all our hospitals now have hospitalist training programs and hospitalists, and Chaim Bell is co-leading with the OMA work to develop an APP for hospitalists. We need physician extenders, but we're all competing for the same people. But the department contributed $2 million, $400,000 to each of the 5 sites so that we could support our residents on the clinical teaching units to address the issues of accreditation. We've been lobbying hard to simplify IMG licensure and accreditation. We've been lobbying hard for expansion of residents and entry into medical school. What we've seen so far is very little to the downtown University of Toronto and much more to the our community, the Greater Toronto community. I think that's misguided, and we will continue to advocate. I don't think the spread is misguided. I think downtown Toronto needs it as well. Most recently, we've created a new position description. We have tried 3 different times over the past several years to create this role, but Faculty of Medicine finally approved it, which is for full-time clinical faculty members whose major commitment will be to provide, advance, and promote excellence in clinical care in a scholarly manner. But we will only use this position when there's unmet need for clinical care that is negatively impacting the academic mission and or physician well-being. Our really hot hotspots are emerge medicine.
There is an academic half day for
general internal medicine, cancer care, in particular. And we're hoping that by allowing people to focus on clinical care, we will enable our teachers to teach. And that is one of our goals. We've had a lot of discomfort and dissatisfaction with teaching evaluations. Of course, we don't make the rules. PGME and UGME do, but again, we've been pretty loud advocates for change. We have far too many faculty who have too few teaching evaluations. We have far too many evaluations with low scores but no comments. We can't act on low scores but no comments. We have advocated to increase the numbers of evaluations required by residents, but it's not going to change dramatically. And therefore, work by Esther Bui in neurology has been critically important to develop an app to enhance and support and complement the learner assessment of clinical teachers' lacked form completion for point of care assessment of our teachers. We can't improve teaching if we don't get constructive feedback. We've also increased opportunities for our faculty to review their teaching scores and question whether a score is reasonable. We've been very, very busy with respect to promoting our teachers on sustained excellence in teaching. This year, the decanal committee at the faculty finally agreed with us that 10 years was not going to be required to prove sustained excellence in teaching. We have successfully got our teachers through as early as 7 years, which is pretty consistent with other position descriptions, but 10 years is just plain ridiculous, and it's gone. We've moved our teaching effectiveness committee under Laurie Albert earlier in the process to help our teachers and added a number of new sessions on how to prepare teaching dossiers. And here are the results. Between 2014 and 2022, we put 315 people through senior promotion. We have 42 pending review right now and 59 who've come in to be evaluated for 24. You can see on this graph, which is not a pretty graph, but that we've gone from about 9% in orange. 9% of our candidates have been traditionally clinician teachers. It's gone to 25% and remains at 25% to date. That is a significant improvement in the proportion of our teachers going forward for promotion. We also see consistently that about 55% go on sustained excellence in teaching, with another 45% going on CPA, and I'm hoping we will continue to see improvement or an increase in the proportion that feel comfortable going forward on sustained excellence in teaching. Kavish Ojanya has been busy in his quality and innovation portfolio. We've seen a 10-year review of the clinician in quality and innovation, and it's done remarkably well, and I've spoken about that in newsletters. If you look across our hospitals, virtually all the leadership in quality improvement and patient safety comes from the Department of Medicine, and that makes us very, very proud. He's also helped with social innovation think tanks to really grapple with some tough problems. How do we take a leadership role in healthcare transformation, the impact of health due to climate change, and the root causes of the high patient demand for care that we're seeing due to the social determinants of health? Under the leadership of Mamata Bhatt, who's come in as the new lead for the Clinician Scientist Training Program, she's looking hard at how we train clinician scientists and how we open doors to people that might not ever have considered a future or a career in research. And that includes our investigators as well. Mamata is already looking at how well we've done, evaluating it, and the dean has asked us to lead across all of the clinical faculties a review of the clinician scientist training pathway. We've been great advocates at TASN Research. We are all suffering from the silos that divide us as researchers, as innovators, as people that want to improve quality of care, models of care. It's way too difficult to work across our hospitals. And so I'm really happy that the Temerity Faculty of Medicine has inaugurally appointed its first director of clinical research, who is our own Antonio Strafella, neurology at Toronto Western. And I am ecstatic, Antonio, we will be working hard to break down those silos so that we don't lose the opportunities to do research before we've even got off the ground. I want to just digress for 2 seconds to thank Mike Farku. I think you've all heard that Mike is leaving us very soon. He's got a very prestigious new role at Cedars-Sinai in California. Mike has been invaluable to our department. He is probably the best cheerleader for our department we've ever produced, and has been a spectacular mentor and force to be reckoned with respect to standing up for the research initiatives, passion and desire, and basically pulling down the barriers to research for our faculty. Thanks, Mike. We've developed 2 documents. One, a standard for supervision for learners by DOM physicians to optimize the learning environment by demonstrating a consistent and mutual understanding of roles and responsibilities. You should all know this document. It is, yes, in response to the internal medicine accreditation, but it was time anyhow. And I really want to underscore the work over the summer that our departmental division directors did to pull this together for every single division. Oops. The second document is our optimizing teaching effectiveness and the learner experience, because we needed greater transparency around how we prepare and recognize teachers. what we do with learner feedback and how that's evolved over time, how faculty can access their evaluations, what they can do if they wish to appeal an evaluation, and how we collaborate with the Temerity Faculty of Medicine to ensure the safety and well-being of our learners. We have advocated very loudly to the Royal College about a number of things. We sent a letter on behalf of all of the Canadian chairs of medicine regarding our concerns about CBD and particularly entrustable professional activities, or EPAs. It is the consensus of the leaders of the departments of medicine, and I think our faculty, that EPA assessments were touted as formative and low stakes, but they're being experienced as summative and high stakes. And we feel that this is contributing to both faculty and resident burnout. Not even the fact that they are extremely costly to implement CBD, time consuming, and have caused us great administrative burden, which again is contributing to burnout. But I think the thing that bothers us the most is that they are perceived by our faculty as creating a bit of a culture of one and done. Okay, I'm competent on this, I don't need to do it again. And I'm not saying that's necessarily how residents feel, but there's a general sense across the country that that's what's happening. And there's concern about whether or not we're adequately preparing our trainees for the work as a staff physician. And in fact, it's interesting. We asked the Royal College we challenged them to tell us whether CBD was achieving its goals, and if so, at what cost. But it's interesting that the voice of the resident actually sort of aligned with how we were feeling. Again, I don't know who these other departments are, but this is the results for medicine residents. They were asked as they exited, looking forward now, how prepared do you feel for independent practice? We had the lowest proportion of residents who said they were very well prepared. Now, that may be our fault for sure, but I think there is and COVID, but there is a sense that CBD is undermining our ability to train. We did get a response. They responded by telling us that while they remain confident in the merits of embracing CBME, they acknowledge that there may be significant unintended impacts and administrative burdens, and will be reevaluating and adapting the processes. We've also been very unhappy with not the reason for the internal medicine accreditation recommendation to put us on intent to withdraw accreditation, but because of the timing in the third wave, the process by which what was discussed was not verified, and the really incredible impact this has had on both our residents and our faculty through a very, very trying time. We are extremely grateful to our residents for having spoken up and articulated what needed to change. We don't deny that, but this has taken a really big toll on everybody, and it has added to the workload further. Just one faculty comment on the faculty survey. Faculty are very unhappy and concerned about the Royal College's decision intent to withdraw. I feel as if the department's message has been primarily that we're working to fix the problems, but that can be perceived as sending the message that the problem is us, the faculty. I believe the department needs to communicate to faculty that it is challenging aspects of the Royal College's review process and decision-making that are unfair or unbalanced. And indeed, we have. Most recently, we were responded to with a request to participate in a series of meetings regarding the future state of internal medicine training and practice in Canada. 5 internal medicine programs have been were put on intent to withdraw. I'm delighted to tell you that as of today, sounds like Calgary has been removed from the list. And I think that's because of our advocacy. But internal medicine has really taken a toll through COVID, been on the front line nonstop. All of our department has been on the front line nonstop. And so I just want you to know that we have been discussing. So where do we go now? What's the next step? We have done a lot of really important things about which we should be proud, despite COVID. We have supported one another through loss and disappointment. We've tripled the number of senior promotions among teachers and successfully advocated to remove the tenure requirement to demonstrate sustained excellence in teaching. We've celebrated 10 years of the CQI, and our faculty, as I said, hold virtually all the major leadership roles in the hospitals and often in government. We've innovated on how to better allocate salary support to scientists, incorporating research excellence, of course, but also paying it forward in distance traveled. We've supported major changes to the CTUs in the IM residency program to address the accreditation concerns. We've received formal acknowledgement by the Temerty Faculty of Medicine that our master teacher program, now over 20 years old, is equivalent to a master level training for clinician teachers. We've continued to recruit outstanding faculty, attract superb residents and fellows, and we've done a lot to help learners and faculty give and receive feedback in a more respectful manner. These seem like small things, but as Van Gogh said, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. And I think we have to keep doing what we're doing. We know we're in a huge demand-supply mismatch. We all know the reasons for this. It's not going to be over fast. And we know that the academic health sciences centers are disproportionately affected because we're the place that people come for that highly, highly skilled care. We're often the only place in the province where people can get A or B or C. They're getting very advanced care that requires much more time and to make decisions, and we have less and less time with our patients. We're also a training site and a research site and an innovation site. So all the other pressures are also on us. There isn't a quick fix. It's not around the corner. And I guess what I'm here to say now that we're close to the end of this discussion is that we really need everybody. We're all important. Everybody is critical to moving this department forward. But I want to make a few requests. One, that we all agree and appreciate that medicine is about service. We are here to take care of patients. We're here to train residents and medical students and fellows how to take care of patients. We are here to do research or innovate in quality or models of care on how to do better in our patient care activities. It is a service. While we acknowledge that there are typical work hours that should be and must be respected, we also know that the nature of clinical medicine is characterized by unanticipated patient emergencies. And if that happens, our top priority has to be to ensure patient safety and optimal care. We agree that times have changed and patients are much more complex, much more acute, and our supervising physicians must be accessible to residents at all times. But we know that it's not simple for a supervisor to cancel a clinic or an endoscopy unit or a cath lab because they may have very long wait lists of people that are very sick and need to be dealt with. What we're asking is that if the supervising physician is unable to make those cancellations, that they appoint an acting clinical supervisor, they delegate them and ensure the residents are aware. The most recent internal review suggests that we're doing pretty well in that respect. Next, clinical teaching is fundamentally about forming strong, trusted relationships and communication between the teacher and the learner. I don't think there's any debate, at least amongst our faculty, that teaching to dark screens is, or even to live screens, is not conducive to forming such relationships. We need to be back to teaching in person. And I know that that's less convenient, but it's critically important to rebuild the relationships that we need to have. And as one very smart GIM resident said to me via email the other day, with respect to psychological safety, I think it needs to run bidirectionally. Students want to feel safe with their preceptors. Preceptors don't want to feel judged by students with their teaching evaluations hostage. The presenter told a story about how a former program director of the year was once short with a resident. That's okay because we're all human. We just need the latitude to make mistakes sometimes. And I totally agree. William Osler said that medicine is learned by the bedside, not in the classroom. We need to get back to the bedside. That's best for patient care when we have these enormous volumes. It makes sense to focus the teaching at point of care. Abraham Verghese, who wrote Cutting for Stone, talks about the eye patient. We're so compelled to spend time on the EMR and learn about our patients from the EMR, but we're not learning about our patients. We have to go to the bedside. We will take all of your recommendations about mentorship and elevate the responsibility to include sponsorship, which is much more proactive. We will create a curriculum for mentors, continue to track, but improve our tracking of how well the mentors are doing with you. We will move our mentorship program beyond early career, more in the middle, and continue to demonstrate the impact of mentorship. And I tip my hat to Catherine Yu, our lead for mentorship. Probably, I think I'm super worried about this comment, and many said it, that academic activities have become mostly an afterthought. It's interesting, last fall in the Globe and Mail, I read an article in which this young internist at Ottawa said, clinical practice helps patients today, but education and research is what helps patients tomorrow. And they're really talking about the role of academic health sciences centers. And this really hit me that, yeah, this is true. You know, I don't know that I really appreciated this when I wasn't chair of this department, but the U of T plays a critical leadership role as academic leaders. We're really relied upon by our colleagues across the country and to some extent around the world to teach, educate, investigate, innovate, and learn, as well as to be excellent physicians. We can't stop doing that work, but the only way we could do that is by building our clinical capacity, and we have to continue doing that. There are some existential questions that I don't have answers to, but lots of people are asking me, what does it mean to be academic these days? Lots of our community sites have research institutes now. They have residents. Why should you give up income in a practice plan and be in one of the fully affiliated teaching hospitals? That's a really good question. And we have to change what it means to be academic in a fully affiliated teaching hospital so that we remain a place where people want to be. What's the future of the physician scientist? The research institutes aren't so keen on recruiting physician scientists. They want the PhDs who are 100% focused. But we know that we cannot survive without physicians who understand what patients are suffering and what they need and what the really important questions are. So we have to figure this one out and find the resources to continue that path. How do we protect time for academic activities in the face of enormous clinical demands? We're doing it as best we could. It's a little bit of a patchwork quilt with hospitalists, the new academic clinician role, extenders, but we're not gonna, as Catherine Tinkham always says to me, we're not gonna recruit our way out of this problem. We do not have vast increases in the number of trainees that are coming into medicine or medical school. That hasn't been approved. So we are going to have to work hard for longer to take care of our patients and find ways that we can carve this academic time out. And finally, how do we rebuild our community? We've all suffered a lot by being away and isolated from COVID. We're dying to get together. So I'm really happy to say that we will launch Story Slam under Alan Detsky, Simran Singh, and Umber Najib on May 16th. And I really hope everybody will show up. It will be a great opportunity to listen to some great stories. We are launching WAM Plus so that we can take learning from previous WAMs, and WAM is Women in Academic Medicine, and spread it much further. And we will have a real party to celebrate our annual research and education and QI awards, our emeritus professors, everything at Casa Loma, because we haven't had a good party in a long time. We will be launching a call for proposals to target, in particular, healthcare transformation, social determinants of health, and climate change's impact on health. So just to summarize, again, I believe this is a truly spectacular and unique department. Look at the things that you have accomplished despite COVID. But the impact of COVID has been considerable, and for many, it's shifted perspective, probably appropriately so, on work and life. We definitely hear you, and we are working very hard to address the issues you're facing, but I don't have quick answers. It will take time, and we have to buoy ourselves together through this. We need to identify and implement or advocate, and we're pretty good advocates, for creative strategies to enhance clinical capacity so we can spend more time with our patients, with our learners, and in other academic pursuits. And we cannot do this if we don't work as one. So I guess I'm pleading with you to please, let's look forward, not backward, reaffirm our commitment to one another and foremost to our patients and our academic mission so that we can continue to be successful and also be happy. Let me close by thanking our department leadership in particular, who've got us through this difficult time. There are so many people, can't possibly name them all, but I am very, very blessed to have been supported by all these incredible people and all of you, and I thank you for that. And I will close my presentation here, and let's have some conversation.
Thank you, Gillian. So opening it up for comments, either in the chat, questions, or if you wish to raise your hand. It's hard to see this many people, so you may just have to unmute or put it in the chat, and then I can call. So the question is, when is annual day at Casa Loma? We're not calling it annual day, but Gillian, you want to answer the junior about
we just haven't had a chance to all get on the same page. Annual day will be the celebration on the 1st. There may be other events happening on the, the 21st, which is when we would normally have citywide medical grand rounds and give out awards. We're not going to do that this year because you've heard enough of me. We're going to party instead. The more to come on the details. Arno, there's lots of stuff in the chat that I haven't looked at.
It's about the Story Slam, questions about the Story Slam. Alan is saying that it's either going to be held at McLeod Auditorium, MSB, or Mount Sinai, and it'll be finalized in April. Laura says, interesting to see the information about senior promotion for CTs. Are there any changes implemented or planned on senior promotion from associate to full professor?
Meaning for clinician teachers?
As clinician teachers, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't break it down like that. But yes, we are starting to see the same groups moving forward. So I didn't break it down. I'll send it out after, but yes, we're starting to see the same trend of increasing numbers of teachers coming through for full professor, which is terrific to see.
Are there hands up or comments?
Well, maybe I can ask whether anything that you heard today resonates. I mean, I've mostly told you what you said through the faculty survey. But I really want this to be an open dialogue, you know. Jackie's looking there smiling.
I think Zach brings up a really important question. Appreciate the perspective of can't recruit our way out of this, but is there a global idea of recruitment needs over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, that's a fabulous question. I don't know if Fahad and Amal are on screen, but there is both this Canadian Medical Association, oh, there's Amal, has been working on health human resource planning. To me, it's a bunch of ridiculous, but a lot of modeling, not based on complete data. Amal and Fahad and Mike Carter here in Toronto have been really thinking more deeply about it. Amal, why don't you respond? Come on, you can do it.
set me up by starting with this CMA is ridiculous and then asking me to shut up. I won't say anything nearly so bold, but I think that what we are trying to look at is how can data inform workload demands, including things like modeling demographic shifts and other things, but more importantly, using data sources like Gemini to try to capture patient complexity. So maybe to give you one example of where crude administrative data seems to be falling short, and something we're working on with scientific work is when you look at basic patient demographics, comorbidities, things like that, they actually haven't changed that much in the last 10 years. Patient volumes and the amount of people we tend to see on the inpatient side have increased a little bit, but actually by a per physician level annually, those numbers have actually even gone down because physicians are working fewer weeks than they used to a decade ago. And so we're saying, well, how do we capture the complexity that we all feel? Like, why are we all so exhausted if it doesn't show up in these markers? And we're finding more subtle signals, like, for example, just a greater volume of blood work that needs to be sorted through. The number of words in an imaging report is much larger than it used to be. The number of medications patients are on. So there's sort of this sense that we're dealing with like information overload and complexity, but it doesn't show up in crude markers. And so we're trying to think through those things and think how we might be able to more intelligently model out demand over the next, 10 years or so. So work in progress,
But I would say, no, we don't have a really good handle. I'm pretty confident we could double medical school and double residency slots and not meet capacity, because we haven't really got a good handle on how much do people want to work in the future. The retirement, which is large, as boomers are hitting that age, and we haven't replaced. We've decreased the number of residents in the past 2 decades, not increased. We've been given we've actually been given 5 additional residents this year, 1 in internal medicine. So we're way off. We are so far off. I'm just looking for somebody in medical oncology around my screen. But the APP for MedOnc
I'm here,
where are you? There you go.
Andrea. I think
I'm
Francis is
also
here too. Yeah.
Okay, so
And I'm here as well, Gillian. It's Monica.
so
And
tell
I'm
us-
here too.
And Christine.
So tell us how things have changed for medical oncology, because I think it's just a great example. Monica, maybe just talk about how long do your patients survive now? How many trials of chemotherapy? How much complexity now?
So I think the biggest change that we have seen in medical oncology is that as a result of all of these sort of improvements in treatment, our patients with metastatic disease are now surviving many years. And so instead of, Frances can speak in her lifetime, the changes in lung cancer, many of which she's contributed to, survival for some of these metastatic malignancies is now measured in the order of years. So that has impact on obviously the ambulatory practice in medical oncology, but that also has impact for some of the other internal medicine specialties. Look at the the inpatient crisis that we've seen from our patients. So it's been, and for medical oncology and malignant hematology as well. There was really no slowdown during the COVID crisis in many ways, actually, because many of our patients have very longitudinal relationships with us. We almost provided a lot of primary care to these patients, especially in the ambulatory setting, because they weren't able to reach or see their primary care physicians. So they're coming to us. So we've seen huge changes in our faculty. I know we didn't see a difference in the survey, but from talking with our faculty, it's been a real challenge. So I don't know if Christine, Francis, and I think Andrea were the ones that said they're on, if they wanted to add anything else.
I would say that we've also been good markers of the effect of decreased healthcare resources in our other colleagues, like nursing. Medical oncology has always had very close working relationships and supportive relationships with nursing, and the decreased numbers in that profession too have really had a large impact on our ability to care for patients in the same way.
And those of you who are in general internal medicine across our hospitals, how many of you are taking care of inpatient medical oncology patients on a regular basis now? Yeah, I mean, the numbers, Moira, I can't remember, last summer, I think you guys at the general hit some remarkable number of inpatient cancer patients that, you know, they're coming to general internal medicine. General internal medicine is overwhelmed. And as Monica always says to me, the oncologists need to keep seeing the new patients, the new diagnoses. They can't let those wait. So these are all challenges that we're collectively feeling. And yes, Jackie, everybody gets diabetes. And what else do they all get? Osteoarthritis. Just reminding everybody. Lots of other comments. Let me just see.
Gillian, can I make one other comment for medical oncology? Because we also report to a provincial healthcare quality system, right? And so it is tracked the wait time to see a new medical oncologist, right? And if it's above 2 weeks for a new consult, that's outside of the interval. So I think we're all under pressure in all subspecialties, but you know, we get feedback regularly on that.
Yeah. Pete, do you have your hand up? Yes.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Gillian. I was going to put it in the chat, but I figured I may as well just ask it. And so I guess, you know, from my perspective, I think it's pretty clear for many reasons, you know, the pandemic, the Royal College decision that's been kind of over us for 2 years now, and really sort of the consequences, both good and bad, I guess, on faculty with some of these improvement efforts. I mean, everyone's really adversely impacted, and everyone is really hurting in a lot of different ways. You know, I often wonder, and I don't know what the answer to this is, but we know that we have more patients than we can care for. We know that we don't have enough faculty, we don't have enough residents, but I do really worry that we're just spread very thin from a training perspective. And so, you know, I guess I have two questions. One, is there any way in which we as a university can really consolidate and collapse to really support our core centers? I think that we could, you know, I worry sometimes that when we're spread too thin, we just aren't available enough to make significant gains anywhere, versus if we were to really collapse into the core sites, I know that would not be perfect for everyone. It would give us an opportunity to at least make a big dent in the core training program. And then related to that, I wonder if there are discussion or ways to really value or further value faculty who have taken on these roles, you know, because clearly being an educational coordinator or a division head or a VP or whatever during a pandemic is much different than pre, as well as sort of all of the faculty who have taken on a ton of resident independent time to really spare the program. You know, wonder if there's ways to really value that when it comes to promotion. But really, you know, I do wonder about the first part, is whether we are able to collapse at all, because I think that would really go a long way. I just don't know if that's even a possibility.
It's not a possibility because of politics. Honestly, we are spreading more. We're now launching an academy at Scarborough. I heard a lot about the influence of all of that on the survey, but the reality is there is more spread because the GTA is enormous, and there is increasing pull away from the downtown cores. And I think that the argument we need to start making has got to be about the particular role we play in the fully affiliated teaching hospitals around subspecialized care, about the environment for research, QI, and teaching, so for instance, a lot of our hospitals provide very quaternary care. It's not provided anywhere else. So that's why we've got 515 fellows, because people come here. But I am not going to win. And Jack, I'm looking right at you, Jackie James, who's a VP Ed. Maybe you want to comment, but they're not. If anything, we're being asked to send more residents out, not collapse people back. And that is something I am pushing hard. And it almost comes back to the existential question I asked about what makes us academic. Where's the the planning. Jackie, do you want to comment? I know we're out of time, but you're muted.
So the issue really also boils down to where is the training? If you flip it and you say, where is the training needed to be for people, where are they going to be working in the future? So that's the tension between saying all of the teaching should be condensed in the traditional academic teaching hospitals versus giving people training opportunities in the environments in which they are actually going to practice. And that's the reason for the tension, because if you know you're not going to be working on University Avenue, you sure as heck want to get practice experience, get practice ready in the community in which you're actually going to be working. And that's where we truly have our tension. So maybe what we need to do is to get really smart about strengthening the community academic links that actually we know will provide excellent community experiences. But Gillian, I did want to challenge this issue of recruitment in the last minute here, because I do believe that we have to recruit more people for our academic hospitals. And if whomever the people are that are modeling can't come up with the answers, maybe we should look at modeling our own needs as academic teaching centers and see what our actual HR needs are and then go after it.
So when I said recruitment, I really was talking about new spots for medical school, new spots for residency. We are recruiting fast and furious. Poor Moira and Monica, I think, have 10 or more at any one time being recruited. So there's a lot of, and emerge, tons of recruitment going on. Our department is getting unwieldingly large, but we are recruiting. We're recruiting fast and furious, and I agree with you. And all position descriptions. Lots to talk about. Sorry we don't have more time, but please send me your comments, thoughts.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Gillian.
Thank you.